Oh, dreamer, wake unto me. A light and few drops are waiting for me. Under the moon, the world in the day. All by the moonlight have all passed away, passed away.
What are dreams? What do they mean? What do you know about the secret world you visit when you sleep? Strange figures, strange faces, creatures that haunt your nightmares. Sometimes you watch us, and other times we watch you. Have you ever dreamed of being stared at, pursued by evil eyes with no escape and no place to hide? What you're experiencing now could be called a nightmare, provided you are indeed dreaming. Did you know there was a difference between a bad dream and a nightmare? The distinction is simple, but oh so important, especially for you. Bad dreams you remain asleep during. Nightmares are usually so traumatic that the body will startle itself awake. Isn't that funny? Your own mind turning against you so much that you physically can't stand it. And here I thought you humans were devoid of any intellectual promise. I think I'm getting ahead of myself, however. But we have until 9:30, according to their alarm clock. That's one of the joys of your generation. Not in any rush to be anywhere. Always hitting snooze. Perfectly content with letting life pass you by. That is until it's too late. Let's see. Where to begin? The etymology of the word nightmare itself is fascinating. The latter half of the word is born from a demonic entity in Slavic and Germanic beliefs, known as a mare. These creatures are not to be taken lightly. They travel as moths and enter the bedchamber through the door's keyhole. They take many forms to torment the helpless dreamer, whether it be rabid beast or unsightly monster. The mortal is helpless as the creature crawls atop them, feasting on their rest, their energy, their life's essence, their fear, throttling them, choking them, and loving every minute of it. The creature usually contents itself before the human is drained completely. Usually. A popular Slavic legend tells of a mare being conjured by a sorceress to punish a king. His knights could not help, as they could only watch on in horror as his head was crushed by unseen hands. Of course, not all of these apparitions are unpleasant to behold. In fact, they pride themselves on the contrary. These demons take the shape of your more carnal desires, feasting on the forbidden lust repressed within your mind. They will come to call as beautiful women or gorgeous men. The female of the species is referred to as a succubus, while the male is an incubus. Once they've discovered you, well, let's hope you sleep in pajamas, for these dream devils feed on sex. It's better to give in to their seductions, as they will take from you exactly what they want, regardless of whether or not you are a willing participant. The crudely put wet dream is thought to be a product of their handiwork. But before you start enjoying their nightly visits, just remember, their sole intent is to drive you to madness, or to conceive a halfling child, a creature equal parts devil and human. The scientific community believes these creatures are only the product of sleep paralysis. But if they're wrong, you may like to know a little charm. Just something the Germans used to like to say, to ward off these beings. It translates roughly to, "Here I am lying down to sleep. No nightmare shall plague me until they have swum through all the waters that flow upon the earth and counted all the stars that appear in the skies." What of nightmares themselves, though? Nightmares, of course, are more prevalent in children, reaching their peak in ages 3 to 6, diminishing in frequency by age 10. As for you adults, 85% of you admit to having bad dreams on occasion, while 8% of you are plagued by them regularly. PTSD, anxiety, and depression make nightmares much more likely to occur. Oddly, another contributing factor is various medications, such as antidepressants. Sleep deprivation may lead to nightmares, while nightmares may lead to sleep deprivation. Nasty cycle, isn't it? Imagery rehearsal is a new therapy designed by psychologists to repattern the thought process and prevent the inevitable visit by the boogeyman. I would go into further detail, but why on earth would I risk explaining something that might help you? That's not in my job description. They strike when you enter REM sleep, which stands for rapid eye movement. This sleep is the deepest sleep, of course besides death. We've all heard of SIDS, but did you know the same may happen to adults? SADS, or Sudden Arrhythmic Death Syndrome, strikes only in sleep. This condition has been connected by men of science to hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. This is a thickening of the heart's muscles without any explanation or obvious cause. But how does this explain epidemics, widespread outbursts that cut young men down at the peak of their physical condition? From the 70s through the 80s, an outbreak began in the United States. Men, all roughly the age of 33, and of South Asian descent, began dying in noticeably high numbers. So high, in fact, that the Centers of Disease Control took notice. These young men suffered no health conditions. Autopsies revealed no hidden internal cause for death. No, in fact, the only connection these men shared was their faith. According to South Asian beliefs, if one does not pray appropriately, if they do not make the necessary sacrifices, then ancestor and village spirits will no longer protect them from the evil in their faith that comes at night as bad dreams. The only measures that could be taken to seek redemption and salvation would be a shaman. This, of course, poses a curious dilemma. Where does one find a shaman of South Asian faith in the United States? The only conclusion that could be reached was that these men had such faith in their religion that it killed them. Proving that if one believes in something enough, it can indeed become reality. Even after me telling you all this, there's the off chance you may not die at all in your sleep. You might just wind up killing someone else. Especially if you're a parasomniac. Parasomnia refers to several sleeping disorders. Confusional arousal, in which you will awake panicked and confused, somewhere between sleep and the waking world. Exploding head syndrome, by which the mind creates and convinces itself a loud and frightening sound startled the dreamer awake. Sexsomnia, a condition when the dreamer will perform sexual acts while sleeping. These acts may include sexual assault and even rape, making them ideal and excellent companions for our old friends the incubus and succubus. A match made in hell. But I did say murder. This would be the act of the sleepwalker, the somnambulist. Kenneth James Parks drove to his in-laws' home one bright May morning in 1987 and let himself in with the key they had given him. This he did while sleepwalking. He continued to beat his mother-in-law's brains in with a tire iron and attempted to strangle his father-in-law to death. Suddenly, as if from a trance, Kenneth came to. Kenneth ran to his vehicle, speeding to the nearest police station, turning himself in, where he confessed to having tried to murder his father-in-law and having murdered his mother-in-law. This may sound like a bad plot for an afternoon soap opera, but his claims to sleepwalking were proven true. An EEG test, used to measure the electrical activity of the brain, was performed on Kenneth, revealing abnormal results. This, in correlation with other facts, was proof positive that Mr. Parks did indeed sleepwalk his way through murder. What a pity. I wish he'd been able to enjoy it. Brian Thomas in 2008 strangled to death what he thought was a late-night break-in. Sadly, he awoke to find his hands wrapped around his wife's throat. He too was found not guilty by reasons of napping. It is said that nightmares represent your innermost fears. Of course they do, as even the word phobia finds its roots in his name. To his fellow gods he is Icarus, but to you of man, he is to be called Phobator. He is the god of nightmares, and all terror is of his dominion. The land of sleep is where the god Hypnos and his children dwelled. There lived Morpheus, the god of dreams, and of course his brother and my friend, Phobator. Phobator was the personification of your repressed anxieties, tormenting the dreams of mortal man by taking the shape of what they feared most. Enjoying each moment of hell he wrought upon the unsuspecting dreamer. The ancient Greeks believed that each god in the pantheon was tasked with a facet of human existence, some with gifts to bestow upon the earth, others to blight the land with darkness. They were wise in knowing that even the wicked gods must be appeased, for to deny a god's existence could mean reprisal. Oh, how things have changed. The pillars have crumbled, and the temples are left in ruin. Man has become recklessly conceited, putting their faith in themselves alone, forgetting that in the end they rot away in a box, while the names of gods live on forever. The purpose of this little program is to remind you of this, that things do go bump in the night, that there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in your philosophies.
To die, to sleep perchance to dream, for in the sleep of death, what dreams may come.
Whether or not you choose to believe in my gods, like Phobator, that no longer dictates our existence. You are inferior, mortal man. You are nothing. We control your reality from here on out. Now, wake up! We control your reality from here on out. Now, wake